much. This is to the news review on the AM show. Let's get into the WASSCE failure surge. So that's a troubling issue for all of us. Now, if you even consider the mathematics, we understand that out of the 455,915 candidates who wrote the exams, only 209,068 managed to secure qualifying grades, so A1 to C6, and this represents 48.73. That's huge. I mean, let me say to you, Honorable, how did we move from student passing with flying colors to this, just within this short while? Why?
Well,
what could be wrong, really?
Once we've not had the chance for our 2 minutes, may I use this opportunity to extend my gratitude to the people of Sisala East. I always say that it's for them that I'm here. Yeah, but...
Borrowed seat.
Eh?
I said a borrowed seat.
Oh yeah, that's what my friend. He knows. He wants me to be there. He cannot say it out. Amal wants me to be there. So, it's quite a situation that we are faced with. Coming here or reflecting over this, I have always said that there are 3 things in this country we don't need to joke with.
You are a teacher yourself. You were a teacher, right?
Yeah, I'm a teacher.
Good.
Yes. 3 things we don't have to play with. 1 is the education of our children, because that determines the future we are building. Number 2 is issues about religion. And number 3 is about the environment. I don't think we have to play politics with these 3 things. Just glancing through the report, I've said that, yeah, it's quite shocking, especially when you look at the mathematics angle. Because when we have about over 461,000 of our children writing the WASSCE, and only 48% passing mathematics, it's quite worrying. But the point is that we need to be able to also do the analysis properly, devoid of any emotions. My first question is to be able to ask, maybe let's go and pick the performance trend of the traditional schools that we know they do well. How are they performing in relation to this? We should be able to do over 10 years analysis of what is happening. Because in the recent past, there have been some hue and cry over how the integrity of that examination has been compromised. And I think that's one of the bins. Do we say now they are putting measures to make sure that this is reflecting how our students are preparing for exams? Is that what I'm going to say? Because we need to be able to decouple that. Is it that well? Because so far, even if you read the report, about 7,000 candidates have had their subjects being cancelled, either per subject base or entire subject base. We have even about 185 schools that are involved in collusion and other things. There are many other things that we've all been struggling with. So for me, I want us to have quality rather than quantity. And I think that when we do that kind of proper introspection, putting all emotions aside to see, does this reflect the kind of students we are, the real capacity of our children at the secondary school level, or is a general failure that we all have? Because I've come to realize that there are some other mushroom schools that we all know clearly what they bring out. For instance, there's an interesting thing. We, in the kind of business in which we find ourselves, sometimes somebody comes to you with a good grade if there's a way you can support. But it will surprise you that I went to a school where a principal of that school told me that somebody came to that school with A1 in commerce. Yet that person could not differentiate between a rectangle and and triangle.
You said this person is what? A tertiary institution?
Secondary school now going into tertiary institution. When the person went for an interview, they asked him, A1 in commerce, just 4-sided figure and 3-sided, right angle and triangle. It was difficult for that.
He went for an interview to enter tertiary?
Yes, a tertiary institution. So it goes beyond just having marks. It talks about the quality that we are bringing. And you know, the time have come for even some universities to complain about the type of students we are getting from the secondary schools. It's clear. So for me, if this is a call for us to be able to look into issues and make sure that we get our students to be able to reshape their mind into understanding that, no, they represent the future of this country. And you cannot get it through shortcuts. No, you should be able to put your all in it, steady, and come up with flying. When you go, I'm sure when you go to the pre-text and the good schools that we have, go and look at the trend. Is it dwindling or is getting better? But if you take it as a whole, I am sure it will tilt or skew towards some other issues. and other schools. So for me, I think that currently what we are seeing is the measures being put in place. That's what we are seeing. So it's reflecting the actual destiny that we are having as a country. For us to be able to up our game even in all schools. That's what I'm looking at. Even
that if kids are not passing, that's
yes.
our reality. Is that what
no, it's not when they are not passing. It's not when they are. We can also exaggerate the passing. It's a situation. Let's not run away from it. Because from politics, we are all afraid we don't want to talk about some of this. We can exaggerate the passing just because of expediencies. You know. We are in a country where sometimes people want to take credit for things that will not really reflect our nature. I gave you an example. If you call the head teachers in all secondary schools, they will tell you their challenges. Today, the biggest distraction students have is the mobile phone. In some other jurisdictions, modernity or technology makes life better. But in our jurisdiction, unfortunately, the negativity of this digital, these machines, electronic machines, is causing much harm. You can see, for example, even about over 6,200 of them, they had their subjects cancelled because they went in with foreign materials.
6,290.
Exactly. Oh. Others even, I think, about 653.
653, yeah.
Also got them because they have mobile phones.
Yeah.
We have seen schools being burned down because teachers told them not to use mobile phones in schools. We've seen that. So I think that we all need a proper self-introspection about this situation. Yes, I don't buy into it because to have that's less than 50% of the people who start the examination are not moving to the next stage. This is a worrying situation. But does it reflect who we are or how our schools perform? We should begin to look at that. And we could bring all stakeholders on the table for us to have a proper discussion of this. Otherwise, you can see, today we have everything around the child to make the child better. How is it that we are now relying so much on the past, where we think that before we used to have very quality institutions as against now? But today the world is so open. The world is just in the palm of the child. Yet we are struggling with children. It's not about bringing out a resource. People can produce resource. But how does it reflect on the kind of future we are trying to build for this country? So for me, yes, it's an indication. Thank God we have a very good, experienced person leading this educational sector. I am sure the right fora should be put in place so that we can all have discussions. We can get more details from WAIC, because clearly WAIC is that incidences of malpractice that is compromising the examination that we write, all that is coming to play. We should try to see how we can bring this to the bare minimum so that when we know our actual capacity, then we can deal with them. We'll build a quality society. We'll build a future that will be able to take over from us and become better for us. Otherwise, when we do things and the shortcuts are becoming so, the children becomes more focused on just getting the grade and not what they learn. It's a challenge.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Let me bring in Dr. Peter Ante. He is the CEO of IFEST. IFEST is the Institute for Education Studies. The executive director of IFEST. Doc, I'm grateful to you for joining us this morning. You've studied the data coming from WAEC. What do you see could be the fundamental challenge that has contributed to where we are today in terms of the performances that these students have put up?
Thank you very much, Kojo. Kojo, I think that we need to exercise a little restraint and ensure that we things right. We should not be in a hurry, give risk or apportion to the performance that are released by WAEC. And I've said this portion always when WAEC their national averages. The reason is that we need to understand what goes these national average. If you know what is national average, then you appreciate the fact that it is always right to say that some system is well or something amiss. You look at the graph I shared with the producer. This is the performance of students, individuals for a period from 2017 to 2023, so rough 6 years. Now, look at them, see that certain, and these are real, you didn't want to use their name, certain continue to perform below 20%.
Doc, you are making a solid point, but the line keeps tripping a bit. So if you can reposition yourself so we can have you clearly, we'll be happy.
Is it clear?
Yeah, let's try.
Okay. So certain schools continue to perform between 5 to 20% consistently for the period that we took the data from WASSCE. That is their pass rate. Now, it is these individual school pass rates that are aggregated to get the national average. If we really want to understand what is happening, we need to study the performance of individual schools so that we know which schools are bringing the national averages down. We cannot continue to assume that, the questions were difficult when we have not done item analysis. Okay. We cannot ascribe the performance to, students were well invigilated when we have not been able to link stringent invigilation to student performance. In fact, if you look at the data of number of papers or schools that had their results being cancelled or withheld, you would see that the difference is not much. But the performance this year, especially with commerce, has gone so low that we are all complaining about. The chief examiner has not released his report for us to say that these are the reasons the chief examiner gave for the responses that the students gave when they were writing the commerce. So why are we in a rush to give specific reasons to why students didn't perform well when we don't know what is happening in individual schools and which schools are bringing the national averages down and which schools are used to sustain the national averages? That is what we in the policy space, we in the educational system should be focused on, because this discussion should not end as we are doing well as a country or we are not doing well as a country. Okay. It should end as a place where we take a decision as to which schools need our support in order that we'll be able to bring their performance up to show up the national average. It's just like the inflation we talk about. If you look at the basket of inflation, you will know that at every point in time, there are items that are driving inflation down or are pushing inflation up. When you want to deal with that, you ensure that you are tackling those items in a way that the price will be sustained or minimized, and then the general inflation level will also come down. That is what we need to do when we are also looking at the national averages when WASSCE publishes these percentages, so that we are not in a hurry to just do any kind of analysis and then go away, and the next year we come and continue to complain about performance.
But someone would also say, I mean, all these schools we talk about, that probably we should look at the performance of other schools to know which school needs our support. But just a while ago, we were dishing out some very good performances, irrespective of the school. So that's why I wanted to find out, where is the issue coming from, really?
That is the point. So if you have followed my argument, when the results were supposedly good, I made the same point. Okay. There are schools that drive our performance, and there are schools that bring our performance down.
Okay.
If we want to understand what is happening, you don't use the national averages. You have to go to the schools and look at their performances over the years, or for that particular year that the exam WASSCE has produced the averages. Then you would know that there are schools that perform extremely well during that particular period exam, and that is why we have that kind of performance in the showing at the national level. So this year, if the performance has been brought down, you need to go back to the schools and look what each individual is seeing what the national average. The point I'm making. So that you know the strategy forward, and then you decide questions or you what questions so that you can assist them. Then the future you will know whether this worked, it didn't work. That is the thinking. So the gap to show you is from 2023. even for all the 300 that starts for WASSCE, and that is happening this year. We were having our performance this year. There schools that would be down up. We see so much.
Doc, the line has gone back again. Has gone bad again.
Hello.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm saying that we shouldn't be fixated or worried so much about the national averages that are being projected.
Okay. We should look at the individual schools and their performances. But I've heard some people say.
Let me make this point.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
With this performance that we are so much worried about, I can tell you that some individual schools still scored 100%.
But is it an issue of free SHS anyway? Because I've heard people make that point.
No. So when I said this around 2020 or 2021, I was always, dealt with. I said that you cannot scientifically ascribe student performance to free SHS. Okay. What are we seeing? We are still doing free SHS. In fact, we have had a sustained mechanism for financing free SHS, right? Mm-hmm. But we still have this performance. So you cannot single out free SHS and say that students are doing well or they are not doing well because of that particular policy.
Okay.
There are drivers. There are things that happen in individual schools that help the school to perform at every examination period. These drivers are what we need to go into the data and look for the individual schools that didn't perform well this year. And then we ask ourselves, what really happened in these? These are policy issues. You cannot use, when we release this thing on Saturday, you cannot use 2 days to say that the reason is A, B, C, D. If we do that, we are not doing well to ourselves.
Okay.
And that is what I expect the Minister of Education to be focusing on. Of course, yes, there are perceptual reasons that people will be giving. We can forgive them. But for me, as an analyst, a policy person, I will not subscribe to any perceptual reason at this stage of our discussion. We need to be careful and then make sure we do the right thing to be able to identify what really happened. And then we can design interventions, not for the entire 700 and so schools that we have, but for the schools whose performance brought the national averages down. And then after next year, we will know whether we've been able to assist these schools to also perform well.
Okay, all right. Grateful to you, Dr. Peter Anti, for joining us here.
Thank you.
He is the Executive Director of the Institute for Education Studies. Let me come back to the studio, then I think Bataglia finished.
Yeah.
So let me come to you a while before I go to Kwabiti.
So I think it's a worrying spectacle, especially after I read the report. I don't know how this year, it's just interesting how the report was released and they had to give us the about 4 years performance in addition to what happened this year. I remember somewhere in 2022, 2023, the issues raised by Dr. Peter Anti that let's look at the schools that are not performing. Dr. Dichum started something. He will go to Opokuwari, pick the headmaster there and send him to a school in a village. And the school were picking up and did some affiliation with some schools in the village, with Wesley Girls and some few other institutions. I know he did something like that to just boost their confidence because they saw that usually the problem has to do with supervision within the senior high schools and so on. But you see, when you check the passing rate of mathematics and science, in 2016, when we took over, mathematics was 32.5%. That was mathematics in 2016.
The pass rate.
Pass rate, 32.8%. Integrated science was 48% and English was 53%. So that was a reason we had to invest heavily in STEM education. And that was the reason we decided to even construct STEM schools, 11 of them across the country. Then we turned some schools like Accra Academy and others into STEM centers And we started some regional STEM centers and so. So the passing rates that you see, the 69, 70s and so on, was as a result of heavy investment in STEM that our government did.
And not
within the period.
Sorry.
Yes, I'm coming. I will respond.
Past questions.
I will respond to what you you understand. So that is the reason this year the passing rate, this is the worst in 7 years. When you check, that's the worst in 7 years. Now, over 220,000 students cannot move to any tertiary institution. 51.2% cannot move to any tertiary institution.
Because of mathematics.
Because of mathematics. And that's worrying. You understand? Because you see, if at a point in time, it was around 32%, mathematics was around 32%, then it moved to as high as 69%.
So in 2016,
yes,
53.19% of students passed English, 32.83% mathematics, and 48.48% in integrated science.
Exactly. So that was the reason we had to do this investment in STEM, because we saw that English was okay, but maths and science was a problem. And that was the reason we did a heavy investment in regional STEM centers. We even started STEM primaries and JHS. If you go to East Legon, there is one there. If you go to Jabin, there is another STEM primary school. If you go to Busumtree, there was a STEM. They will start from primary school up to JSS. Then they can go to the senior high school. We constructed 11 in the Western North. We have the one at WASSCE, Pasenke in the Northeast region. These are STEM schools, and we did that purposely because we know that we need to have a lot of engineers. We need to have a lot of people going into the tertiary institutions. So if today we have moved from 69% to 48% in mathematics, that is worrying. And if you look at but we have not seen the full report.
But you've heard Dr. Ante there say, just don't take the national average.
Yes.
Look at school specific to know exactly what is happening.
Exactly. So I'm saying that even if you check, he mentioned that in 2020 he was talking about the national average. He still was mentioning the schools that were not performing. That's why I told you that Aduchuma's education minister, I remember, was trying to do this, and he trained the headmasters because he felt that, he said 90% of them do not know how to administer these schools. So there was a training program for them around 2022 or 2023 for all headmasters across the country. And he had to move some headmasters to other schools so that they will be able to perform. So that's why I'm saying that when you check, if today the national average is around 48%, even if some schools had performed better, had 100% and so, this has been happening even when they were performing. And you had schools that are dropping the national average also down. And these are the things that I told you that we had to invest in so that we'll be able to achieve what we have achieved. My brother MP is saying that we shouldn't politicize it. But you see, the problem with we politicians is that when we are in government, we don't want education to be politicized. When we're in opposition, then we overly politicize education. See, in 2023, after the students passed, President Mahama is reported, and there is a video to it, to have said that the school children were allowed to cheat in the exams after 2023. So in 2024, there was stricter, because my honorable will want to say that, well, this year there was a strict invigilation. That's the reason maybe we've seen our national average. That's not correct, because in 2024 was the year that they had to do strict invigilation. Because 314 schools had their exams withheld. This year, it's around 80 something. So it means if you're talking about strict invigilation, it is in 2024, but still the students were able to pass. You understand? So if this year it has dropped from 340
it doesn't really show that.
It shows.
No,
the data point to the fact that if in 2024 314 schools across the country had their exams withheld because of possible collision, this year it has moved to 185 schools. It means in 2024, they had stricter invigilation done in 2025.
But
No, that logic cannot
contest that.
Exactly, that logic cannot be. No.
If last year
Yes.
it was over 300 and this year it's 100, it
even very shows how polarized the system was.
That the supervision was large.
Yes.
So I'm saying that
Yes.
that is the case because you see, they try to scrutinize to find out if there are possible collusion. Because usually that is the reason they have to withhold the results of the schools. So in 2024, that was the highest in over 10 years, where you have over 300 schools having their exams withheld. I'm a teacher myself. You understand? I was a trained teacher. You understand? And so I know what I'm talking about.
But I'm sure you agree that does not mean that this year the invigilation was
this year, I'm saying that when you compare to last year, in terms of how strict WAEC has been,
okay,
you understand, this year is a bit relaxed.
So that's your viewpoint.
Exactly. No, the data also shows that indeed, the data is there to show that indeed 314 were scrutinized than this year, which is around 885. So that's my viewpoint, and I think that's the data. I'm also speaking to data.
Okay.
So when you really look at what has been happening over time, even from this year, you know, preparation towards WASSCE exams, the last 6 months is very critical. And this government took over in the last 6 months of their, their exams. You remember there were issues of food shortages in the schools. Because at a point in time, the government came and said they will give the monies to the headmasters to go and procure their food and so on. At the end of the day, the education minister is now saying that they will not give the headmasters the monies to go and do it because they were not feeding the children well.
Okay, all right.
So this year, they are saying that they will not do that. So possibly, it has to do with food, the policy, a lot of things, because they couldn't get the right food to eat because the education minister is telling us that indeed these are the reasons they had to take the food from. The government initially was supplying the schools with the food. The government, the NDC came and said they will give it to the headmasters. Now they are telling us that they are not feeding them well.
I think your point is well made. Let me bring in
thank you. Just a minute, please. Awal indicated very beautiful points about the STEM and all the training given to the teachers. All the STEM schools are still existing. They are there in the system. They've not been stopped. Those who have been trained, the model that the then education minister, the head teachers that we train, they are all in the system. It means that there's something fundamental that we have to look at.
So I think that it will be premature to start apportioning blame or giving reasons to the performance of the students. As somebody who proudly belongs to the Chalk and Talk fraternity, I had a conversation with some of my colleagues who are actually now headmasters of secondary schools to ascertain what actually could have been the cause. You recall that the supervision bit that my good friend talked about is not really founded because last year, WAEC actually delayed in the release of the WASSCE result. Do you recall? Because government couldn't release funds to them on time. You recall?
Yeah.
Good. But this year, I've been told that government actually released funds to, the schools or to WAEC on time for the organization of the WASSCE, examination. And so in terms of resources, this year, WAEC was capacitated to do what they are supposed to do. And so last year, because WAEC was incapacitated, the supervision was actually not the best last year in the schools. Yeah, because they were not having resources to, as I did indicate that I spoke with people who are actually dealing with the students. Okay. And so last year, the organization, even though it was successful in terms of supervision, this year was more stricter because WAEC was having resources. They were able to deploy the supervisors and invigilators. One even mentioned that when they go to pick the script from the center that they are going to pick the script from, there are people who are with them. And before they get to the center, there is also another batch that is there waiting for them. So there was no way they could tamper with.
But that has always been the case.
And so he concluded by saying that the performance this year may represent the actual performance of students at the WASSCE. Okay. However, when we are doing the analysis at the global level, at the national level, we may get it wrong. Because one of the issues that has been in the system has to do with the performance of the individual schools and the individual students themselves. Now, when you take the schools, they have been categorized into category A, category B, category C. Do you have category D? No, I think it ends at C. C, category C schools. Now, you take a school in my hometown, for instance, the performance of the student there may not actually be, comparable to the PRESEC, the Wesley girls, and the rest. Because even the computerized placement system that puts students in those schools, they also factor the aggregate into consideration. And so a school that you see a student having aggregate 36, aggregate 40, aggregate 42 will not be admitted by a school like PRESEC. I mean, I stand to be corrected. Right. But that same student will be sent to a school in a, outside Accra, I mean, typically in the villages. So we need to factor all these things into consideration before we draw a general conclusion as to what is the exact cause of, the past. Now, I think the Director of Public Relations for WAEC, when he was interviewed, said that it is too early for them to start attributing the cause to the pass rate and that they need to finalize some rough edges. Still, there are some schools whose results have been withheld. There are some individual, candidates whose exams have been cancelled pending investigation. So he said that until that is done, it will be very difficult to actually know the exact cause of the passing. However, I think that, as he said, education is something that we need not to politicize in this country. Now, the result has been released. We have seen that about 48% of the students have not done well. What policy decision? 51.
Yes.
What policy decision will government, bring on board to curtail this sort of, abysmal performance? Now, when you talk about quality education is not centered only on passing of, exams. And so, personally, I was a bit surprised in the past when, taxpayers' money was used to purchase past questions for students. I was a bit surprised. You know why? Quality education involves a lot of stakeholders, okay? You have the government in there, you have the parents in there, you have the teachers in there, you have the community in which the school is located, and recently, you see the work of all students. They are all partners in quality education. And so I have been saying that education should be a shared responsibility.
But it's always been a shared responsibility.
Yes, it should be a shared responsibility.
I'm saying it's always been a shared responsibility.
Exactly. So I'm coming to a point that every stakeholder, I just mentioned that the students themselves are stakeholders in terms of quality education. Yes. Now, what one of my friends told me was that, Charlie, you don't compare a typical school in Volta region to a school in Ashanti region or PRESEC or the B school. You know why? The student comes to school in the morning. He will leave the school around 12 o'clock. He will go to farm and come back. And then the next day he will come to school. That will be after 2 or 3 days. How do you expect the performance of this student to be? Unlike the other B schools where the students are under strict control to learn. Okay. So if we are doing the analysis at the global level, then we may mix the true and the exact cause of the failure. We need to tackle the individual schools, tackle the individual students within the schools, and see how they are responding to,
Thank you very much.
Brace, it's interesting that he is saying that the delay in the release of exams, I don't know how the fund, I don't know the correlation between release of results and the delay and invigilation. Because you see, WAEC did not release the results because of some financial issues. It has nothing to do with invigilation. Nothing. It has just absolutely nothing to do with invigilation. Invigilation was done. Then they were doing the marking. and they said they needed money to release the results. So I don't know how he is telling me that because we delayed in releasing the monies to them, that is the reason he think that invigilation was not really stricter at that time. That was what you said.
I didn't attribute.
No, that was what you said. You said they had funds in time. In 2024, they had the funds in time and they were able to do invigilation. It was the monies that was left, 25 million, that were supposed to pay to them for them to release the results. It has nothing to do with invigilation. The release of funds has nothing to do with invigilation. Again, past questions. When I was even in JSS, I was moving to WAIC in Kumasi to buy past questions to prepare for exams. We're doing it. Our parents, didn't you buy past questions?
His point is that government buying it for
government is assisting them so that they will prepare to write the exams.
But he finds a problem with
why will you have a problem when my father gave me money to go and buy it?
And your father can buy it for you.
Yes, he can buy it for me. Yeah. But what about someone whose father cannot buy it for him? Someone who cannot even go to WAIC regional office to buy it.
All right. Thank you.
Government did that to prepare them for the exams. Let us what the government did.
Let's